Alright, I was able to get these cleaned up a little bit. You can see there's quite a bit of carbon buildup on some of these valves. I'm going to try and get those cleaned up eventually. I'm going to take the valves out anyways. I'm waiting on valve compression tool to be able to do that. So obviously it looks as if it's mostly the intake valves that are gummed up. I'm going to show you one that's actually the first time I've ever seen something like this. Looks like a big ass booger. I have no clue what the hell that is. But they did clean up pretty good in the Varsol tank. I was able to get the one bolt out. You can see in here, these are the intake runners. But on this cylinder head there was a bolt that was basically stuck for one of the lifters. I was able to get it out, luckily. As well as there was also an exhaust bolt that was stuck in there as well, that I was able to get that out. Now, this one here, this cylinder head here, the intakes aren't too bad. I don't know if you can really see that. The exhausts are pretty gross on these. But in here, there's a stud that's or a bolt that's broken in here. I'm gonna try and get that drilled out. I prefer to drill them out. We'll see how that goes. I do have a welder. I could technically weld a nut onto it to get that out, but I'm gonna try and drill and get that out without damaging any threads. But that's been broken for a very long time from another shop doing the work at one point, so I don't know if you can see. Let's see here. You can see how gross the exhaust valves are. So I'm going to try and get those cleaned up. That was not so bad. But that goes on all of them. I did try and clean them up with Varsol. Now, like I said, when I had them in there in the Varsol tank, they actually held the fluid, so they are sealing. So there's no issues in regards to that. So I'll clean them up some more after I get the valves and everything out. I'm just waiting on the valve spring compressor. It's supposed to show up sometime this week. All these lifter bolts. See all these lifter bolts? So these are one-time use torque to yield bolts. I ordered new ones for those. Same thing with the engine. The main cap bolts are torque to yield bolts. The connecting rod bolts are torque to yield bolts, and so are the what's the other bolts? The camshaft and crankshaft are all torque to yield bolts, so they're one-time use only. So essentially, one thing that a lot of people don't understand with LS is, and I just obviously found this out, was that you're going to spend probably about $400 on new bolts just because they're torque to yield. I'm looking for longevity. Like I said, I have 464,000 kilometers on this engine, and I hope to have another 464,000 kilometers on it. So that's my ultimate goal. So let's see here. So even technically these ones are torque to yield too, which is kind of funny. But like all of these bolts here are all torque to yield one-time use. Unless you want to replace them with ARP, but if you replace them with ARP because they have a different clamping force, you need to actually re-hone, because you're going to have thousandths less clearance usually with ARP. So I'm not going with ARP on this engine, just because I'm just going back stock. I'm not putting any extra power to it. I wasn't planning on it anyways, not at the moment. I just got to get my truck going. However, I do have a 6-liter LS as well that I will be building for my Camaro. So eventually that'll get done and I'll show you guys that one. But right now I'm just trying to get this up and running, back in the truck. Truck's been sitting for quite a while. So, and when I get it in the truck, I want to drive the truck. And yeah, it's been a long journey. Takes some time. I made sure to check all the clearances before I even ordered the parts. Main thing that I checked was I wanted to check the bearings, make sure all the bearings were the right bearings with the right clearances. For camshaft, crankshaft, rod bearings, all of those. I want to make sure that all that was correct before I actually ordered the parts. So I took the time to do all those measurements, as you probably saw in some of my older videos. So, but at least this is rotating assemblies in here. New pistons, they got good clearance. The piston rings were all within tolerance when I checked them all. It's been fun. Yeah. Enjoy your weekend. Have fun. Stay safe.